you meet that person and you're like, oh, wow, I want to be them when I grow up. Never mind that I was already in my 30s, already had another degree and already like was like, wow. And I just watched her and I was like, you're amazing. How do you know what questions to ask? How are you so calm and so curious and you don't feel this angst? I always felt this angst. And I found out later she was a coach. And so it was just this moment in this like aha in my brain. And then there was another person I was working with, and she had that same calmness, and she didn't feel this level of angst as a consultant. And I said, what is it? And she turned out she was a coach. So I was like, what is going on here that these amazing practitioners were also coaches?
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets, the podcast where we talk with successful career coaches on how they built their success and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is Davis Nguyen, and I'm the founder of Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, and even $100,000 weeks. Before Purple Circle, I've grown several 7- and 8-figure career coaching businesses myself, and have been a consultant at 2 career coaching businesses that are doing over $100 million each. Whether you're an established coach or building your practice for the first time, you'll discover the secrets to elevating your coaching business.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets Podcast. I'm Pedro, and today's guest is Debbie Plager, a coach who believes that sustainable business results don't come from strategy alone, but from people-centric approaches that actually stick. As an organizational strategist and coach with ICF and MCC accreditation, she helps individuals and teams achieve their business, leadership, and personal goals. Whether working with executives or entire leadership teams, Debbie delivers a lasting behavior change and increased well-being through her collaborative approach. Her clients experience deeper professional satisfaction while she guides them through organizational development, talent strategy, and change management. Please welcome Debbie Plager.
I'm so excited to be here with you and to just have this conversation. So thanks for welcoming me on the show.
It's great to have you, and I'd like to rewind a bit, go back to the origin story, because every coach has that moment where they look at their life and say, yeah, I guess this is what I'm doing now, right? So when was that for you, Debbie?
Oh, it's interesting. So I was, and I guess for a long time have been in the org development space. So I've always been interested in that intersection of strategy and people, that messy space. And I was working with a lot of practitioners, and there was this one woman, Leslie. And when you meet that woman, you meet that person, and you're like, oh, wow, I want to be them when I grow up. Never mind that I was already in my 30s, already had another degree, and already was like, wow. And I just watched her, and I was like, you're amazing. How do you know what questions to ask? How are you so calm and so curious and you don't feel this angst? I always felt this angst. And I found out later she was a coach. And so it was just this moment in this like aha in my brain. And then there was another person I was working with, and she had that same calmness, and she didn't feel this level of angst as a consultant. And I said, what is it? And she turned out she was a coach. So I was like, what is going on here that these amazing practitioners were also coaches? And so I was finally like, all right, Deb, figure it out. And so that was my aha moment, Pedro, realizing that these great practitioners in this space that I loved were the ones that knew the right questions that were, by the way, no surprise to your listeners, simple questions. Didn't need to be the smart ones in the room, didn't need to know more than their clients, just needed to hold space. Were coaches. And I didn't know about coaching. I was the daughter of 2 mathematicians. The whole business world was still pretty new to me, but I didn't know about coaching. And so it led me on this whole journey of trying to figure that out. And so once that world opened up to me, that was the beginning of a beautiful journey for which I'm forever grateful.
I love that. Like, you're looking at someone and you're wondering, what's the secret sauce, right?
Right?
She cracked the code. What's up with that? She's like so So I mean, the way they walk, the way they see stuff. I've been around people like that. I love that story. Now, Debbie, when did it shift? From I'm helping people in the coaching space to I'm building a real business around this, because there is a lot of trial and error in the first days of coaching. You're like trying to test the waters, see if this is really going to land. So I want to understand the shift, oh, I might have a coaching practice.
Yes. And I would say I was very fortunate in that I had a really successful internal corporate career for a long time, right? So, as an OD practitioner, and I was a talent nerd, and so I had that whole space. And I actually grew coaching practices for companies, whether they were startups, large Fortune 50, 250, PE held back firms, et cetera. And I was coaching on the side, right? And then I'm in Chicago now. I'm a Chicago native. For a while, we lived in Maine. And so, for your global audience who might not know where Maine is, it's like the northeast part of the US. It's actually where the sunrise first hits the US. So, it's like you go where Boston is and you go north and you go east. It's out there. Maine is a small state population wise. I promise I'm getting to your answer. And from an economy perspective, we just talk about everyone's got a side hustle, right? So I was doing my corporate job, but I also was coaching on the side. And I was doing more of it there. And I think I realized at that point, I think I at some point want to do this full time. So I was doing more and more of it. And at some point, we realized Maine was not our forever home the way we thought it was. And we moved back to Chicago. And so I knew at some point, this is what I'm meant to do. And I had that voice that I was listening to. So I would say, trust that voice, folks, when you know. And it was just a matter of when. And it was a matter of, what type of coaching and what could I do. And in the meantime, I was still loving my corporate career, but I was continuing to coach on the side. And so I knew it's just a matter of when, what was right for my family, what was right for me to go out on my own and say, yes, I can do this. I have value to add. I know what type of coaching I want to do, and the time is now. So for me, I gave notice in 22. I ratcheted down. At that point, I was chief talent officer. I ratcheted down my corporate role. I was slowly going to grow my business. And then 23, I consider April 8th my launch of my business, because my last paycheck, which was very small, was April 7th. So April 8th, I consider the launch of my business in 23.
Okay. Correct me here if I'm wrong, but Maine is the homeland of Stephen King, right? And I love
Yes.
Stephen King. Okay. So just point out there the fact that, yeah, I am very familiar with Maine. All the stories are based in Maine. Okay.
Yes.
Now, after you got rolling, right? 2022, 2023, who are the people that kept showing up? The ones you realize, okay, these are my people. Because in the early days, especially in coaching, we see out there a lot of coaches that are trying to help everyone, right? And there's nothing wrong to it. But I want to understand if you ended up niching down and how that played out for you.
Oh, that's such a great question. And it's so funny because, right, I went through a coaching program and everyone's like, niche down, niche down, niche down. And I was like, why do I have to niche down? And I don't think I realized it because I was still in corporate. And I was like, I can coach anybody. And it wasn't until I actually was running my own business. And I was like, now I get why you have to niche down, because you have to cut through the noise and you have to be really clear about who you're going after. So I did eventually niche down. So in terms of your first question about who was showing up and who was like there for me, I was also, again, I think very fortunate in that my last company where I was chief talent officer, I had great relationships. And so what I would say is, again, in some ways my story might be a bit unique, but my guess is a lot of you that are coming from corporate and moving to the solopreneur and the small business world, it's not like, we're maintaining good relationships, and I had them as good clients. They are still good clients. They know me. I know them. And so that was helpful. And I think prior corporate relationships were good, are good clients. I know that world, right? So for me, I am servicing the corporate world. So I am B2B, right? I am really focused on executives, and I'm looking, I kind of look at a certain level of executive. So that for me is helpful. I think it's helpful because I understood succession and I understood what were some of the challenges. I also worked a lot in technical roles for people that were really great technically, but maybe weren't so great leading people and really setting vision. And how do you go from like, okay, you can only tap so high being technical, but if you want to be the senior leader, you have to really lead people, and you have to let your ego go. And it's how are you bringing people along, and how are you bringing teams along. And it's not your intelligence, it's your emotional intelligence, and how do you create space and more oxygen in the room and all of that. And so I built skills in doing that, and I love working with people like that. And I think partly it's, sometimes I say it's in my DNA. Like I have two mathematicians for teachers or for parents, and my brother has a postdoc in physics. And I'm like, I have, like, I stopped at calculus. Like, I like being around smart people doesn't scare me, but I'm like, okay, but hey, but do you know how to connect with people? And so that's really worked for me. So in terms of, going with what felt comfortable, I would say go with that and go with where you have energy and where you feel like you can make a difference. And so for me, I felt like that was where my niche was. So I hope that answers your question, but I probably, like a lot of coaches, just want to continue to just tell the
No,
story. So
it does. Okay. So prior corporate relationships, corporate world, we're talking about B2B as executive. So how do those people usually find you? Since we're talking about like a little bit about marketing, just for trying to understand.
yeah. And I think it's knowing your space. So having been on the other side of that desk, right? So how I looked at how was I trying to source coaches before. Companies of a certain size had people in my, what role I was in a chief talent role. So it was, did you have someone in a talent role or a learning role or the head of HR? So trying to understand how they were structured. So there's always someone in human resources. So it's trying to at least that. And it's just building those networks and understanding, those associations and where are they connected. And it's, just leveraging my networks and saying, okay, who do you know and who are you talking to? And people who know me, who trust me and know my work at the first and foremost, right? So I've done coaching for them. They've seen me make a difference in people, and they can talk to that. It's not just, hey, I like Debbie. It's, she's helped leaders in my organization. She has helped teams in my organization. She has helped move business along in my organization. I trust her. I trust that, and I can put my social capital on the line. Those are, it's like you just need a few of those, right? So, how are they willing to have those conversations with their peers? And how are you, as a business owner, saying, who do you know? Who are two people that you're willing to introduce me to have that conversation?
Hmm. Interesting. Now, let's talk business for a second, okay? So people find you, Debbie, the Play Group, right? And the Plager Group, sorry, and they resonate with your work, okay? And eventually they want to know what working with you actually looks
Yeah.
like through your network or whatever. I mean, your digital presence, something like that. So because everyone builds their coaching business a bit differently, right? So when someone actually becomes a client, what
Mm-hmm.
does that experience look like right now, structure wise?
And it's really interesting, Pedro, because I think we talked about this a little bit. I am trying to scale. So we're in such a fascinating time. Like we're like the S curve part of my business. So it could be one of two things. So if they're coaching, if they're with me, right, I've got different packages in terms, like I think every coach. So if it's with me, I'm trying to understand what it is that has brought them to coaching, right? So what's the need? Is it something that's new role and it's just, do we think it's going to be a 4-month experience, a 6-month experience? Is it something that's really significant that we think is going to be longer? I oftentimes will have that question from HR, like, what's typical? And I say, honestly, what's most typical in the corporate experience at the executive level is a 6-month package. To this day, don't even understand where that came from. It's typical. Like, I mean, I think it's been around for 30 years. It's been around since at least the mid 90s. Actually, that's more than 30, right? So I say we can always start there. And if we find that, first of all, like, let's start there if you think, but I always want to know, is the person coachable? Do they have enough awareness? Are they bought in? Because the last thing I want to do is waste their time, waste your money, etc. So I want to have a little bit of a chemistry connect, make sure that we're the right fit. Because I feel like I'm doing the right thing for the company. Is you want someone, right, who the right fit is someone where you can be both vulnerable and be pushed and feel safe, right? So I can be open, I can be safe, and I know I'm going to get that little, come on, you could do it. You can stretch. You can stretch. I believe in you. You can stretch. But I'm not going to be passive and let you just sit there. Like, you want to be different in 6 months. You want to try things. You want to experiment, right? So as long as we feel like we can work together, then we're going to set things up, right? And I've got my own methodology. Every coach has their own methodology, right? So we'll do that. We'll have our I have my package. We have check-in points with the manager, with HR, etc. We have development plans. That's really important to me. I think the way that most coaches do, right? And it's that client is building that development plan. So I say, hey, this is what you're working on now in 2026. My goal is I want you to build this skill so that, like, in 2027, when Debbie's not here, you're like, hey, what is important to me to work on now? Or 2030, when you're in a new role and Debbie's not here, I can look on my, what I call it, my metaphorical feedback shelf. And what's important to me, I can pull this theme down and this theme down, and I know how to work on it, right? Because I've taught you how to fish. You're not dependent on me, right? So that's part of that sustainability piece that you mentioned in the intro. That's really important to me, right? That when you work with the Plager group, you don't just get good at the one thing now. You're also learning how to do this over time. Right. So that's them working with me. And then we're checking in and we're developing the development plan. And then let's say we close out at 6 months and there's enough progress and then we feel good. Sometimes we want to extend. Sometimes we move into maintenance. It all depends, right? It's very individual. Now, I mentioned I'm scaling, right? So part of what I'm doing is bringing on additional executive coaches in the one-on-one space, because as you mentioned in the intro, teams. That's a real passion of mine. It brings my org dev and my coaching together. And so I'm freeing up my capacity from the one-on-one space to do more with teams. And so there are tremendous coaches that I know through my work and faculty, being part of Northwestern and just my life and my work. So I'm bringing on more one-on-one coaches to work with my clients and service them to save my capacity more for the teams. So same process, right? Let me understand what you're working on. Let me understand about their what they're looking for in a coach. Let's do the chemistry process. And it won't be with me. But I can get you someone who thinks and has approaches and thinks about brain science, and will be that same space of vulnerability and stretch.
Okay, so first of all, I would call it, and you can correct me here if I'm wrong, okay? It's almost like a university engagement level. It's like I'm teaching you how to fish. I'm giving you these tools so you can know where to go in case you need it. It's like a panic button, right? So I really like that, the frame. And how you care about the future, right? It's not just about pushing through a process. It's like really transformational change, so people can hone in whatever they need to go to. I love that. Okay. Second thing is, you kind of mentioned, right, because your work seems pretty hands-on, and we're talking about capacity. You mentioned that. So how scaling season also, how do you think about capacity so you don't stretch yourself too thin? Because that's something that we see a lot in the coaching space, is that they're wearing all the hats, right?
Oh yeah. Oh my goodness. If someone could tell me how to figure that out, like, right.
Mm.
It's like, right. And to be fair, right, I have some wonderful mentors that are sort of like being business coaches for me and helping me think through that. Right. So I'm thinking through, what is my capacity? How many clients can I take on? What does the work look like? Right. Because team coaching has a very different rhythm than one-on-one coaching. So I'm thinking through, okay, so how many engagements could I take? How many one-on-one clients can I have at any one time? I have some work that has a known period of time, and I have like my active, like if you looked over my wall, right? What's active, what's pipeline, what's closing. So I always know, I mean, I have things that are written down, so I have reports. So I'm able to kind of see like what's going on. Um, and then I have sort of my goals for the business. So that's helpful to just sort of manage that. Um, and then the reality is, like, I don't know, as I'm bringing on coaches, and I've been really candid with them, and I said, we're all in the US, we're what we call 1099. We're all contractors. I can't guarantee business. And I said, we're affiliates at different organizations. And I said, continue to do that. And I said, if and when there's work, like, I think you're a good match. If you fit this sort of profile, I'm looking for people that have worked in corporate America and led in corporate America, because that's important to my clients. And then they went back and went into coaching, right? Because it's a good match for who I serve and who I work with, who have certifications in coaching, who understand brain science, who kind of feel the way I feel about the sustainability piece, right? So we're aligned in how we want to serve and support that long-term way, right? So if you have that alignment, I feel that's really important, right? So they know, hey, eventually they're going to get work, and meanwhile they have their other ways of getting work, so it's fine. So that's how I'm trying to figure out scaling. And for me, I'm trying to grow sustainably, right? So that's important as well. So I'm not looking to, I say, how many business, how many corporate clients am I looking to grow this year? What's the pace at which I'm looking to grow? If we're going to check in next year, which would be kind of fun, right? To say, like, did I do it? How fast did I grow? We'll see, right? So it's a plan. We'll see if I did it according to plan. I think also sometimes it's just like you have opportunities and sometimes you just have to go for it. But at the same time, I'm trying to do it as judiciously as I can,
Mm.
but we'll see.
Okay, I love the honesty. I love how open you are about that.
Yeah.
And one thing I want to ask you, because you left corporate and then you started building your own practice, and that's something very interesting, which is the topic I want to highlight is pricing, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of self-worth in that space, right? Especially in the coaching industry, because and I would say even service-based industries, it's like, am I charging too much? Imposter syndrome. Am I not charging enough? So how do you think about it today? And what are any lessons along the way that shape how you landed where you are right now? And I'm not talking about hard numbers. I'm
Yeah.
talking about
Like the
that.
mindset and
Exactly.
um, my good friend, who I won't say her name, she's going to listen to this and she's going to know exactly who she is going to tell you that I'm not charging enough. And it's so interesting because, again, I will tell you where I sat. I know what I should be charging, and I'm probably not charging enough. And I'm still okay with that because in talking with a mentor of mine, I know where I am. I know what competitors were. I know where my brand is. And I look, 5 years from now, I know where I want to be charging. But I also know, like, I have got to build the brand. So give me time to build the brand. I also know where I want to come in the market. So am I undercharging probably what I should be? Maybe. Not too much. I'm I am trying to be mid market, and I'm trying to service the mid market. And that's intentional because um, that's where I think the greatest good can be made. It's also where I think I can get in. Like getting into the Fortune 250 is really hard. That's where the larger firms play. I don't want to deal with that noise. I want to get in where to organizations where we can make a difference. So that also affects pricing, and that's okay.
I love how open you are. You know, Debbie. At the end of the day, you're not trying to play an act. You're just you. You know, I love that how open you are.
I mean, it's like we're here to make a difference and make the world better. And I
Exactly.
think that there is business to be won. There is income to be made. There's revenue to be made. There's lifestyle to be had. You can have a good life being a coach, being a small business owner, doing this well for everybody. So I feel good about it.
It's about always be sharpening the sword, right? It's always in the growth mindset. It's like you're not settling with that pricing, but at the same time, you know there's room to improve. I think that's key, you know, at least in my book. Now, I'm curious about where you're taking all this, and you kind of mentioned that, okay, scaling season. So looking ahead, where do
Mhm.
you see the business going? Are you thinking about scaling, which you are, hiring, or is there a next step you're excited about? You know, I want to hear
Yeah.
from the Plager group. What comes next?
Yeah. I honestly think if I were to hire, so everybody right now would be contractor, right? So it would be a very small initial footprint. My guess is my first full-time employee or part-time employee would actually be on the operations side. It would not be wouldn't be a coach. It would be someone to really help me run the business.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Take
I
off
have
your
great.
plate, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, it's so funny, right? Like if you look back, if someone said to me, again, daughter of two teachers, didn't understand any of this world, got a history degree. I have a master's in medieval history, thought I was going to teach, learned about change management. I didn't understand any of this. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to be my own business person. And now to think like I'm actually going to be a small business owner, like moving from just me to like now I'm actually thinking about how am I getting other people work is just mind blowing. And I was like, I can do this. So I'm wanting to do this in a smart way too, because I think there's just I want to make sure that if I'm going to do this, I'm doing this the right way. And I take that very seriously. So I'm not out to, it's interesting. I'm part of a small leadership circle group with other small business owners, and they've got, actual employees, and they're thinking about that. And I said, at what point do I want to do that model, or do I want to stay how I am with a bunch of contractors? And I think I want to see where I am and can I do this sustainably for a few years and then make that decision, right? Because that's a whole other model.
Right. You know, and whenever we're aiming towards the next chapter, always something under the hood that we're refining, right, in the present. So what are you currently trying to improve or tighten up in your business right now?
I mean, I think it's definitely the operations. I am not an operations person. Right. I think it's all those contracts, using the tech, right? Like I've landed on a coaching platform I'm excited about, just because, again, going back to my other side of the table, like when I was chief talent officer, like what I know it would provide for my clients to be able to say, like from a reporting perspective, hey, we've got multiple client engagements going on. Here's how they're going, right? Here's the ones that are about to wrap. Here's, their surveys of what they're saying is happening. Here's maybe some group coaching that's going on. Here's some team coaching that's going on, and being able to do all that reporting, doing all of that stuff, which I know has nothing to do with the coaching, but it has to do with the running of the business. I want to be able to, make sure all of that is ticked and tied, because I think that's really important. To show the business, like, this is a huge investment and this is how this investment is going, and to provide some transparency, not on the actual coaching, that stays confidential, but just the process of it all, right? And to give them visibility into like, hey, you've got X number of engagements, and some of them are a third of the way done, and some of them are 2/3 of the way done. Here's maybe some developmental themes, right? Here's where we've got some survey data back that they've shared, right? So I'd love to be able to get that to a place where it's feeling really good, that my coaches are feeling really good, that they've got consistent resources that they're able to use, that the client experience is feeling really, really strong, right? So I want to, for me, like that's the next place to really, really focus. And that's going to require some time and energy and folks. So
Interesting. Okay, now I want to tap into your experience for a second, because people listening can really benefit from this. You've been in the game long enough to hear all types of business advice, good, bad, you name it. Now, what's one piece of business advice you hear all the time that you think it's overrated or even misunderstood?
Sometimes it's like giving your services away for free and doing too many like free sessions this, free sessions that. Don't do it. Mm-hmm. Because once you do that, it's really hard to get stuff back. Right. So, I mean, I'm okay if you're doing an initial chemistry call for free. I think that absolutely makes sense. But then, hey, can we do this for free? Can we do that? I think they've already then they're perceiving you in a different way. So just hold your line, hold your value. I think that other piece of just also just remember your value. So that's a piece. I'm really still kind of torn on the whole niche down. I mean, I think you have to niche to a certain point in terms of, because the way that social media is working and just cutting through the noise. And to be fair, right? Like, because I'm not B2C, I can't really talk too much about that space and how people find each other. So I'm not great, and I'm intentionally off social media just for my own like well-being. So if that's how you find people, I think it's amazing. I know so many people that do, and hats off to you. Like, I know lots of people that are active on Insta and find people there. I had people tell me I should go on a TikTok when TikTok was like really huge for, and just like, Debbie, you should do videos and that's where you're going to find people. And I was like, no.
Yeah, I cannot picture an executive following you on TikTok.
No.
I don't think they hang out there.
No, not really. But
yeah,
like it's like maybe my son could find me.
Exactly.
People, right.
Exactly. Well, it's that mentality of just throwing stuff at the wall, like, oh, you should be all over, But when you're all over, you're not really in a specific spot. You're I would say you're spreading yourself too thin.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. That's at least the way I see it. Now, on the other side, what's a piece of advice which people, more people actually took seriously?
Oh, okay. This I would find is, so I went through what I would call an amazing sort of business boot camp, which was tremendous when I was sort of that first year of really launching the Plager Group. So I kind of knew what I wanted to do, and it really helped me refine. And there were a couple of sessions that just were really helpful. And one was a different way to think about sales and networking. So one is really leverage your network. Think about your top 100 to 200 people. And I know that's scary, and I know that that seems like a lot of people, but really think about your people in your network. And it's not like everybody. So it's not, for me, for example, everybody. I don't need 200 CHROs. I need, who are 200 people in my network who know me, who believe in me, who could open doors for me, who can share my story. So it could be an accounting friend of mine who just deeply believes in me, who I just want to connect in and just hear what's going on in his or her life, and really hear what's happening. And once a year, I'm going to have a deep conversation with this person, and I'm going to hear their pain points. And I just need to make sure that they get the story right of what I'm doing, so that when they're hearing what's going on and they're hearing someone else on their network lament, oh man, my team is just really blowing up. Or, man, I just work with this jerk. I'd say something stronger, but I don't know your view on profanity on your podcast.
You can do it.
So they go,
It's
oh,
allowed.
you should, you know what? You should talk to Debbie, right? Because you know that Debbie works with jerks and helps turn them around. Or Debbie's really good at helping align teams, right? Like you just need to have those 200 people out there because they know you and they trust you, right? So use your network deliberately and intentionally. And this woman who's amazing, and she said, kind of like, she said, how these great comedians and they go on comedy tour, and she lives in the Midwest, so she's like me, but she's not outside Chicago like I am. She's in a smaller city. She said, they go on tour and they start in Des Moines and they go to whatever and they go to Madison and they go somewhere and eventually they end up in Chicago. And by the time they end up in Chicago, their show is perfect. So you don't like figure out your story, test it somewhere, play it somewhere, like bring it on tour, and then, go with your friendlies first and then hone it, hone it, hone it. So by the time you're mostly telling it to most people, it's a really, really crisp story. So it's okay if like your first 10 times you tell it, it's a little wonky. So I thought that's brilliant. So really, when you're thinking about quote sales and networking, your sales is you. Your sales are your stories. So think about it that way. And I thought, whoa, she's like, isn't that a lot less yucky? And I thought, yeah, that's a lot less yucky. So for whatever that's worth, think about your network and really invest in being clear about what's your story. What are you really trying to quote sell? And it's the value that you provide, and just have it in a couple of vignettes of the pain that you solve. What's your killer problem that you solve? Make sure you can tell it in a couple stories.
I really like that, especially the fact that you're sitting down with that accountant and you're like thinking about it, right? You're having to practice. Like, how do I solve the pain? Did he got what I actually do? Because that's gonna show up in the sales calls later down the road if you don't have practice. It's like, I'm not sure what she does, and sometimes I'm talking with coaches and other people and they're like trying to explain to me what they do and who they serve and how they solve it. And they start with, you know what I think I could, and you're like, what exactly are you trying to tell me, and you don't feel it. But if you have that practice, I think that's very powerful, because you've been there, you've done that, you've been through the elevator pitch, you know exactly who you serve, you know exactly how you serve and who you don't serve. So I think that's a very powerful reminder. I like that.
So Pedro, so here's my two stories. So like if you've got teams that are like, you've got rock stars on teams, but they are not where they need to be and they're leaving potential on the table, and they can do more and they need to do more. I can get them aligned and get business out the door and get them working together.
Love that.
That's what I do.
Yeah.
Okay. So like now you've all heard. Okay. So you're like, I've got a team. You're like, wow, I've got a senior team and they're stressed. Imagine this, right? If senior teams can be just 5% better, imagine what that can do for your organization. If you can invest anywhere and you can get your senior team even 5% better.
Debbie, and if someone listening wants to connect with you or follow your work, where can people find you and connect with you?
Best place is LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. Debbie Plager. The Plager Group page is not that active, but Debbie Plager is pretty active. I have a website, theplagergroup.com, and those are great places to find me.
Nice. There were a few things you shared today I feel like I need to highlight, the aha moment with Leslie. And, I want to be her when I grow up at your 30s. I love that. This is like such an open-minded person. It's like, oh my God, there's something here. I need to tap in. There's something here and I'm curious about, and having that curiosity. I mean, this is like such a great feat. It's a great asset to have, during your life. This always keeps you, engaged, updated, and all. I really love that curiosity, And I would say the overall thing I would have to highlight is how vulnerable you were during the entire podcast,
Mm-hmm.
from niching down to saying, I'm not really sure right now if I should be niching down X, Y, and Z, or if this is exactly the spot that I should be, to I'm still figuring out capacity, or right now, I'm not sure if I'm charging enough. So, Debbie, I think that's such a powerful reminder for your own integrity, and how, because at the end of the day, when you're in front of a coachee, and you're trying to connect, right? It's about connection, and you're going to make some tough questions, right? Some hard questions. You're navigating through stuff that they really don't want to do sometimes. So if you're open to, they feel like it's easier to talk to you. That's at least on my book. This is how I perceive it. Now, this is my long way of saying, Debbie, that I appreciate what you do, and I appreciate you being here and sharing so openly today. Okay, it was great having you on.
Thank you. It was a real pleasure. I'm glad to be here.
That's it for this episode of Career Coaching Secrets. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this episode to catch future episodes. This podcast was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, or even $100,000 weeks, all without burning out and making sure that you're making the impact and having the life that you want. To learn more about our community and how we can help you, visit joinpurplecircle.com.